Okay, let's try this again. I'm getting frustrated. But okay, it's fine. I'll just run through this one and it's over. It's done. And I will have completed this goal I set for myself. So, okay, so this video is about answering the possible reasons why the Queen Anne's lace means wisdom and purity. So that's important, okay? We are starting this video with the premise that the Queen Anne's lace or the daucus carota means wisdom and purity. Now, as we go further, I will explain that I don't actually believe it does. I think it has more connection to fertility and motherhood than it does to wisdom and purity. But we're trying to find the possible reasons why it might mean wisdom and purity. And I think the next video will be me trying to defend why I believe is actually fertility and purity. So, why am I even asking this question, right? Why am I starting with this assumption that the daucus carota means fertility, sorry, means wisdom and purity? Well, it started as it usually does, with me finding something to hyperfixate on. And I downloaded this app that is called Picture This. Or I believe it's called Picture This, I should double check that. But it's simply an app that you can download and then you take pictures of different plants and it tells you this is the plant, this is how you take care of it, this is like a brief description and information of it. And in this particular case, I noticed it had a little section that says symbology, and under it said wisdom and purity. And my first question was why? I could understand purity because the flower is white. I could understand, I guess, wisdom, mostly because the common name of this plant under this picture, this app, under the Daucus carota heading, was the wild carrot. And the connection I made is okay, carrot. People tell you to eat carrots so your brain develops more when you're a child, and okay, wisdom, I guess. But I also know that many times when you get the symbology, it has something to do sometimes with stories or with mythology. So I wanted to know if, in this case, there was something to it that was more related to this kind of thing because I really do enjoy that sort of thing. So I wanted to know about that. Now, before we jump the gun, what is the daucus carota? All right, because we don't even know what it is, and we're already saying what it means. So, the daucus carota is a perennial plant. It reaches from 30 to 120 centimeters. It has tall, hairy stems. From the outside, it really does look very similar to the carrots. So I can understand why people believe it's, or why a few sources said it is an ancestor to the carrot we eat nowadays. So it's important to note, and I want to emphasize this. I don't know if it is because I found sources that claim the Daucus carota is an ancestor to the carrot we eat today, and I found sources that said no, it's not. So I like the expertise to make the decision of which sources know more what they're talking about because I don't know anything about the evolution of the carrot, if that makes sense. It has a flower that is kind of similar to the carrot's flower, but more delicate looking. So it's something of like an umbrella like cluster of tiny white flowers, which has a red flower or purplish flower in the center. Um, this purplish flower comes back later, so just remember it. And it usually blooms during its in second year of life, between spring and fall. And most people know this flower, not by the common name of wild carrot, but as the Queen Anne's lace, especially in North America and Australia. despite the fact that it's not native to North America and Australia. It's not. It's native to Europe and Asia, but it was brought over to Australia and North America by the colonists. It looks very similar though, and ooh, sorry, my headphones decided to talk to me. I lost my point. Damn you, headphones. Okay, let's just go back to this. Right. So the daucus carota is edible. So the root is edible, but for a very short stretch of time, and it's very woody most of the time. Sometimes too woody to eat. That's why it's edible for a short stretch of time. What it's mostly eaten or mostly edible of this plant is the flower and the seeds, which are usually fried and buttered, and that's how they are eaten. It's also used as herbal medicine, so I found instances of it used as an abortive, so to prevent pregnancies, or not prevent pregnancies, but avoid it being fruitful. Yeah, or uh, as an aphrodisiac. So okay, and also um, yeah, it has different uses as herbal medicine, but the earliest use I saw of this plant is in the Royal Babylonian Garden in, I believe, yeah, the 8th century BCE, and it was used as an aromatical herbal plant. So it just smells nice. Um, so, and this is important. Don't go around trying to find this plant and trying to eat its seeds and butter its flowers or just bring it inside. Don't do it. This is it's a beautiful flower, but it's very similar to the poison hemlock and to the to the pronunciation issues giant hogweed, which means you're taking your life into your own hands when you're trying to bring this plant into the house. Okay, don't do it. Not a good idea unless you're very familiar with the plant or you know what you're doing. Just observe it from afar and be like, oh, that's very cute. Don't touch it. Do not touch it. Okay, and if you do, do not blame me. I told you not to touch it. Now, it grows everywhere. This is one of the things that I found interesting once I started studying the plant and like looking at it. I was like, okay, now that I know what you are, I can see you everywhere. This is like it spreads so fast that it's considered a weed in some parts of the world. And you can find it well around here mostly in parks or like mm, on valleys and around the size of train tracks. But it's also what I found is it grows in rough grasslands, roadsides, coastal cliffs, and dunes. But mostly, yeah, like wherever you see, like wherever you give it space to grow, it's gonna grow. It's just gonna spread all over the place. Um, okay, so go to the meat of it. To go to the meat of it. One of the reasons, or I think the most compelling or the strongest reason why it might mean purity and wisdom the is is by the one of its common names being the bishop's lace. Okay, so when you're saying bishop's lace, right, you already get this concept of the bishop, right, this religious authority, the Catholic Church, right? So it does imply spiritual qualities, mental qualities, right? Religious authority. And by that I mean it does imply with it, with this invocation of the Catholic Church, it implies purity and it implies wisdom. These are learned men that follow God, right? I finish the sentences with right all the time. I noticed a couple tries ago, and I can't stop noticing it, and it's so frustrating. Frustrating. Okay. So that's one connection under this name. The second connection under this name is the lace itself. Why? First, we are not talking about the lace as it started. Okay, when you took lace, very early stages, lace was referred to simply the thread that would connect two pieces of garment. So, for example, this being tied together, that will be lace, technically, or it was called lace originally. This thread that connects the garment, like two different pieces of the garment. But as it evolved, you started seeing bobbin lace and then needle lace. Bobbin lace being lace made with bobbins were usually made either with wood or with bone, or like needle lace that was just one thread, just connected in itself and in itself until you got a net. Yeah, this type of lace was used in vestments in religious ceremony by the Catholic Church before it started becoming a fashion statement in the 16th century and further. Um, well, a fashion statement in court, obviously, because people couldn't really afford lace, like common folk couldn't really afford the more beautiful, more intricate lace creations. So to the point that needle lace for a while was considered like fashionable, and bobbin lace was more like the kind of lace that people that were just trying to imitate court fashion but couldn't really afford it would have. So you know. But for me, the connection, the importance of this was that most people wouldn't really have access to nobility, right? They wouldn't have access to the queen and the king and the ladies. They would have access though to the clergy, right? So seeing this lace in religious ceremonies would have made that connection in their minds, at least before the 16th century, that this was something that would be seen in the church, something that was special. So a flower that looked like it might invoke that image into their head, this religious ceremony, this purity, this sacrosanct space. So I can see in that, I can see this doubling down of the connection of this flower with the Catholic Church, and with it, with the concept of wisdom and purity. And that is the closest I can get to being like, okay, this is where purity and wisdom come from. This is a strong connection, and this is as strong as the connection goes, as far as I could figure out. The next connection that is not as strong but could be made is by its other very common name, the Queen Anne's lace. Now, we don't really know which Queen Anne gives the Queen Anne's lace. We don't really know which Queen Anne gives the Queen Anne's lace its name. There are two Queen Annes, the Queen Anne of Denmark, which and the Queen Anne of England. The Queen Anne of Denmark being the great grandmother of the Queen Anne of England, which is kind of cute. I like that. And in both cases, it has to do with both Queen Anne's having some sort of fondness, right, for Lise. Um, it's actually believed that, or it's actually known. Sorry, it's actually known that the Queen of Denmark was a very skilled lace maker herself, which popularized, I guess, the or helped justify the widespread teaching, or not necessarily widespread, but like the industry of women learning to create lace and selling it, and in that way earning a little bit of economical independence, which is very interesting, and we'll see it in a further video. I'll make a context information video, but it's not really relevant as of right now. But both ladies have two stories that can connect them to the Queen Anne's lace and might be the origin of the naming of these flowers this way. So we don't really know which story belongs to which lady. I've made connections in my head and believe that it's very likely that, for example, the story that belongs to the Queen Anne of Denmark is the following. And I believe this, parenthesis, and I believe this because the Queen Anne of Denmark was famous or known to be a skilled lace maker. So the story goes that Queen Anne, possibly of Denmark, possibly not, Queen Anne was very fond of the daucus carota. And during her time, it was actually, the leaves of it were actually used as accessories. And she was fond enough of this plant and admiring enough of the flower's beauty that she made a contest, or she proposed a contest with her ladies in waiting. So she told them that they should all try to make a lace as beautiful as the flower, and whoever came the closest to it should win. Which, let's be honest, she was always gonna be. I She was the queen. I don't really think anybody actually tried to win. And if they did try to win, I don't know. I mean, she was the queen. She was always gonna win this. But the story goes that obviously she won the contest. But as she was finishing this project, she prickled her finger with her needle, and a drop of blood drops right where the purple or red flower and the Queen Anne's lace flower is. So that's why I said, see, the purple flower comes back. There's this connection, right? The other story, which I believe belongs to the Queen Anne of England, happens in Kensington. Kensington, yeah, happens in Kensington, and that's why I believe it belongs to the Queen Anne of England, mostly because it's in Kensington, and Kensington is in England, so that's my grand connection there. But the story goes that she proclaimed that the paths had been decorated specially for her by the plant, because this flower was growing all over the paths in Kensington where she was taking her walks with her ladies in waiting. And as she was proclaiming this, her ladies in waiting were carrying these lace decorated flowers that lace decorated pillows that looked very similar to the flower. I'm doing a lot of things with my hand, but you cannot see it because the camera is here and I'm talking to here, but it's very uncomfortable because I have the wall. Next video I'll figure that out. Right now I'm just trying to get through this. But yeah, so that's the connection to them. Now, what I can when I was trying to find, different reasons why this could be purity and wisdom, the only connection I could make here was, if we assume that the meaning of purity and wisdom comes from the Victorian era, from that time where giving meaning to flowers started to become, sending messages through flowers became something that was common, especially when you couldn't write these messages down, then you can tie the concept of queenship, right? Of the queen as this woman that was by necessity, right, a mother, and well, the role that women had at the time, and the queen was supposed to set an example for all the other women, right? So, despite the fact that these two queens predate the Victorian era for a time, if the meaning of the flower came by the Victorian era and there was already this connection to these queens, it's possible that there's this connection of motherhood and the queen and slaves. Now, why is that important? Or why could that mean purity and wisdom instead of simply fertility or motherhood? That's because during the Victorian era there was this concept of the separation of spheres. Now, what was the separation of spheres? It simply said that, well, that the genres, I cannot pronounce it, okay? Men and women, because the Victorians didn't accept anything else of the spectrum. It just was men and women, and that was designated by birth, by your biology, and nothing else. We're supposed to live in two separate spheres, and though both spheres complemented each other, they did not mix. And one of these spheres, right, or one aspect of these spheres is reproduction, right? In the case, or in the Victorian era, the idea was that men need and want sex. Men are plagued by sexual desire, while females or women did not want sex. They didn't want it. They had no sexual desire. They were simply, oh, this is why you see my hands. I might have fixed it. Okay. So women have no sexual desire. They submit to sex to please their husbands and to have children, because that was the rule. Motherhood was part of the role. Motherhood and being a wife, running the household. And because this version of reproduction means that that is, I guess, less tainted, because it doesn't, it's not tainted by sexual desire. It's a purer form of reproduction. It's purer. It's less weighted down by this taint that is, I guess, wanting to have sex in the first place. So that's the one connection I could make with the Queen and Slave's name as it was. This connection of motherhood and feminine reproduction. And feminine reproduction being seen as something softer and purer simply by this supposed lack of sexual desire. What wisdom there is in it, I don't know. But I can see purity. Maybe wisdom in more connected to the idea of being pious, I don't know. As I'm saying, I try, but I really didn't find many connections that I could be like, okay, this is this is a very strong one. The the strongest connection I could make was, I just, as I said before, the religious connection between the flower and the hmm. Okay, now going further, right? Just the Victorian flower language, as I was saying before, a further connection with purity that could come with the Victorian flower language is that this flower was seen as a meadow weed, which is apparently just the meadow weed part of it, or the characterization as a meadow weed, would give it the meaning of purity, untouched innocence, simply because it's a wildflower. That being said, the Victorian flower language was not exactly standardized, so the meaning of each flower would vary depending on the book you found, and so it could not. It depends on the book. In what was more popular, I don't know. It's the best I can do. The other, as I said in the beginning, is the flower's white. That's purity. But yeah, wisdom makes it a little bit more difficult. The connection to wisdom that I could actually find was, but didn't really have the purity aspect of it, was that another name for this plant is bird's nest, because when it dries, the flower starts getting concave and it starts looking like a nest. And with that, you get the connection to the trees, to the air, because it's up, because nests are usually up high in the trees, because you get also the connection with a bird that is flying. An ear is usually related to a masculine element. It's also related to wisdom, to the myths of creation, because it's the breath of life, to wisdom and intelligence, and sometimes even creativity. So I could see that connection with wisdom, but even then, it wasn't like, you would have to assume that it's that particular connection to the bird and the nest reflected, like, that particular meaning of air in both of them, because it could also mean other things, right? The just the nest by itself, it usually has more to do with home, love, the familial love. I mean, the effort that it takes to create and sustain a family, and less to do with air. The strong connection there will be the bird and air, but even then, it will be just this tiny aspect of the concept of air. It just doesn't convince me. Or maybe I already made my mind. I don't know. My headphone is talking to me. My headphone is talking to me again. I'm sorry. It gets very confusing because they are Chinese and it talks me Chinese. It talks to me Chinese and I don't understand Chinese, so whatever. One thing that I could find that kind of reinforces that idea that it might mean purity and wisdom, even if I don't know why, is that when I was looking for meaning of these things, I started finding a lot of um, magic and esoteric uses. And obviously, it wasn't what I was looking for, but it would come like if you need to replace, like, you could add the queen and slaves as to signify purity or the purity of your intentions. But even then, in those sort of things, it will also show up as fertility and lust. So to me, it really does have to do more with fertility and motherhood than it has to do with purity and wisdom. But this is all the information that I could find that was like, okay, there's something to support this possibility. I just think there's a lot more that supports it as a, as a flower that should be connected with fertility and motherhood. It's most of the information that connects it to purity and wisdom is indirect, right? It's a this is connected to this, and this could mean this, therefore the plant could, right? There's nothing really jumping out at me as yes, this means purity and wisdom. Just the more I read, the more convinced I was it means fertility and motherhood. But it is what it is, and I promised myself that I will make this video and that I will publish it, so this is me following through and being stupidly nervous and babbling all the way through, because babbling when I'm nervous is what I do. On the bright side, middle truth is I learned that if I pushed my tablet a little further back, you could see my hands, and if I pushed my mattress a little further down that way, I could stick my feet here and I wouldn't be looking, that side onto the floor where I'm talking to you. So at least the next video, it will look like we are actually talking to one another and not like you're standing there while I talk to a friend on this side. So okay, I hope you liked it, and if you didn't, don't tell me, it will break my heart. Okay, no, it won't really break my heart, but it will make me feel very insecure, so don't do that. Okay, I'm cute and I'm adorable and I have cat ears. Okay, so don't be nice to me. Give me a head pat. You're like, good job, cat, you conquered your fears.